Now. Welcome, you guys. So this is week 1 for the Emotional Healthy Spirituality course, and we're really talking about the problem with emotionally unhealthy spirituality. And this format will be different than what it would be if we were live. This is supposed to be a 2-hour class. I'm a mom, I work from home. I don't have 2 hours, sweet friends. I know, I look at Natalie, I look at all of you, like we are doing this in 50 minutes. And so I will send homework home with you. I'll email you homework, but please understand that that is not required. What is required is compassion and love towards yourself. That is the only thing that we are doing. I also said, if you want to do this emotionally healthy spirituality day by day devotional, great. If you're like Natalie and have other things going on, you just come listen and God will work in your life. What we are doing in this class is recognizing that we need to be with God. We need to be known by God as much as we need to do for God. I believe we need to be with God and be known by God more than we do for God. And so I think, and Dr. Peter, nope, I just put a doctor in front of Peter Scazzero, the author's name. I love that I just add doctor to everybody. Now, Janet's a legit doctor, right? Like, is she a real doctor? Can I just start adding Dr. Abigail, doctor to everything? But I want you to understand that that is the premise of this book, is that how do we understand what's happening with us, our emotions, when our whole world and our whole life is spent avoiding our emotions. And when we avoid our emotions, we turn our back from all that is God-given. If we believe truly that we are made in the image of God, there is no emotion that we can feel that isn't of God. We are of God. So the premise of this exploration with our mind sight and anatomy of the soul is really to understand that our emotional health is necessary for spiritual maturity, and that emotional health looks like the ability to be aware and aware of ourselves, or how to love ourselves well, love others well. And we're going to add that with this contemplative spirituality, and that creates a spiritual revolution and spiritual newness of spirit in our lives. So we are just going to explore this. I believe that so many of us are disconnected. Obviously not us here, because we're here at the table, right? But I am oftentimes disconnected from myself. I avoid my emotions like I avoid things I don't want to do, right? Because I'm not taught how to feel my emotions. So through this work, we're going to work on how to identify our emotions, what to do with those emotions. That's why we do more than just this emotional healthy spirituality. I believe the fundamental challenge that so many of us face right now is disconnection, because we are fundamentally afraid of our worth. We're afraid of the truth of who we are in Christ. And so we run from the feelings. We forget that Jesus felt. We decide that our feelings, Jesus wept. Jesus said, take this cup from me, oh Lord. Like, we decide that our feelings are wrong, that our feelings aren't safe. Abigail and I were talking about this yesterday or the day before yesterday. It's all a blur, right? That we don't understand how to feel safe with our emotions. Because from childhood, we were told, like, deny your emotion, stuff it down, we don't cry, right? We're going to get into an exploration next week of what you were told in childhood of how to deal with your emotions. And our spiritual upbringing plays such a big role in that. If we were told that to be a Christian means to fake a sense of happiness or joy or peace, we distrust the emotions present in us. And so we are so disconnected from our emotional experience. We forget that we are a child of God, in the image of God. We are called by name by a loving God. And so often we find ourselves in that deep chasm, right? Of dissonance, of cognitive dissonance. I'm multitasking and we know that we are called by a father, right? We are called by a loving God. And at the same time, we are of the world and we struggle here. We get in deserts and wildernesses and we don't understand what is happening. I was saying this on Wednesday. Welcome to whomever joined us. I am so excited. And you guys also know you can have your cameras on. I love cameras because then I could see your face, but don't feel like you have to have your cameras on ever. But I say it's like this. We have glasses on right now. All of us are wearing like dirty glasses. I have kids, so they've like mucked up my glasses with their dirty hands that always have like pudding or something on them. I don't know where my children get the dirt from their hands, but we all do that. The world clouds our glasses. But we understand that we can have the tools. God gives us the tools to clean those glasses off. And we'll do that together, to be able to see ourselves, to see others, to know that we are loved beyond measure, that we are loved deeply. We are known, we are called to an abundant life that has lots of feelings in it. Our life is not one of rainbows and sunshines and unicorns as Christians. And I think sometimes that's the confusion. Is that we think as Christians, we will suddenly, it's like a genie in the bottle, and God will answer our prayers in the right way we think God should answer them, right? I can't be the only one. Yes, and so then when it doesn't happen, we think that we aren't loved. When we experience that deep sadness, we think something's wrong with me. So in the next 8 weeks, we're going to really explore some topics, just light, airy, breezy topics to help illuminate for us what is happening. We're going to have optional homework. And just so you know, I'm a cognitive behaviorist, former therapist. Now I only do coaching. A, so I don't have to take insurance. B, so I can approach people from this perspective that you are whole and good now. And all you need to do is wipe away the dirt and the grime of this world to see you for who you really are, in the image of God, with the light of God in your heart. So we're going to do this work because I believe that we have to address, this is the cognitive behavioral part, we have to address both our thoughts and emotions, right, our cognitions, to change our actions, our behavior, to get new results, to renew our minds. It's that Romans 12:2. That's what Jesus' life and Jesus' stories taught us, is that it's our thoughts, our brains, our minds that need to be renewed at the same time as new action. We cannot force action. And I think that's what's challenging about the Christian experience now, is that we say, you pray, you do these things, you do, and God, you're made new. But we don't spend time in reflection or listening. Prayer, I hear it from so many of my clients. Prayer is this one-way ticket where I talk to God, need something addressed. How do we listen? So a lot of this contemplative journey is listening to God and getting quiet. I think we're afraid of quietness. I am. I love that I just say we, because it's the global we instead of saying I, right? I'm afraid of being quiet. I'm afraid of what God will say to me. And so this is an exploration to say you are not alone and you are seen. What sweet Peter, I'm going to call him Pete now because we're that close. I've never met him before, but you know, Pete and I, he talks about, and we do this in psychology or coaching, is that iceberg theory of the mind. And it's really fascinating that we are made up of deep layers well beneath that surface level day to day, right? And that how do we get underneath that 10%, like an iceberg, the 10% that's above the surface of the water? And so much of our lives are spent at that 10%. Because it's safer there in the shallow end. I just recently heard a sermon by a pastor called Mike Todd, and he was like, get out of the shallow end, get out of that 10%, and that's where you meet Jesus. That how do we sometimes push ourselves in the deep end? I will never force anybody into the deep end. That's how my parents taught me how to swim, right? They were like, there you go, good luck to you. It did not help me learn how to swim. So we're not going to push anybody in the deep end. I think that's what's so important. So we're like, you can wade in the shallow end all you want until you're ready to slowly work yourself. And so we clean up our lives. I say this on the surface level. And we're like, look at us. I'm a good Christian. I got this down. Like, I got this reading my Bible thing down. Great. And I can recite Bible verses. In fact, I can't. But and it's that surface level Christianity. And so what we're trying to do is go deep. And it's going to be hard and messy. And you probably will be like, I'm not going to go next week. No, I'm kidding. There probably will be some point where you're like, whoop. But please know we are in this together. That we are learning this. Hi, Brandon. We are learning this. We are exploring this. We are understanding that we are called to a deeper life. And it is in that deep life that we learn and grow and become who we are. It's not in the shallow. And so it's not Dr. Pete, sweet, sassy. We'll just call him Dr. Pete. He's a doctor in God, right? It's a doctor of God. But anyway, Pete says.
And all the PhDs all over the universe said, no. No,
I know. They're like, that is unfair. So in this book, but by the way, this is a great book. I don't think anybody should have to read it. But if you want to read it, great. If you see my 5-year-old signs his name on all of my books, because why would he not be an author too, right? So
can you send us that book list via email that you were
yes, it will be, yep, you got it. But please know, none of it's, what is it, forced? I'm not shoving you guys into the deep end, but I will. I'm happy to do that. And so there are 10 symptoms of emotionally unhealthy spirituality. Are you ready for this? I read these. I had the goosebumps talking about these because I read these and I was like, whoa. Okay, are you using God to run from God? So we do activity for God to not spend time with God. We're like, I volunteered at my church. I'm making these up, but you can fill in the blanks, right? I volunteered in my church, I read my Bible, and I taught a class. Obviously, I'm just saying this for fun, but therefore I checked that off. So I don't have to sit in quiet time with God. I did what I needed to do. So we're really ignoring the areas in which we need God. We do things in God's name, but not from the will of God. So that's the first symptom of emotionally unhealthy spirituality. And remember what I'm going to say, as a cognitive behavioralist, the only way we change is through kindness to our hearts and through kindness to our brains We cannot beat ourselves up for long-lasting change. God does not want you to be angry with yourself for saying, oh my gosh, look at me. I am an unhealthy Christian. No, we're not saying. So the second symptom is ignoring sadness, anger, and fear. I think a lot of us do this. We're taught that our emotions are unreliable, not to be trusted, that it's not biblical to feel anger. But sweet friends, that is half humanity. We are suppressing that God-given gift of emotions. God speaks to us in emotions, and we're going to get into this later. The third symptom is dying to the wrong things. We die to sinfulness, but we are not called to die to the good parts of who we are, like the joy and the art and the beauty and the nature. I just went to Botanica for 30 minutes. That's all the time I had to see the tulips, because I was like, sweet, I don't want to miss this. How do you make time in your life to see God? To not die to all that is around you. That's the third. Fourth is denying the past impact on the present. Well, of course, this is my favorite because I was a therapist, right? This is where I get into it. Sometimes we have the mistaken belief that we are baptized in the Spirit, that once we become a Christian or accept God's plan for our life, that all of a sudden, all of the past limiting beliefs, the automatic negative thoughts, the pain, the unhealthy attachments that we picked up in childhood, that they just suddenly go away as if by magic. Really, the work is naming how the past is impacting our present. And in that recognition, we change our story. We meet God there. We meet God in the story. And that is one of the weeks that we're going to be doing, is writing how he goes back 4 generations. I tried to do that in an anthropology class when I was in college, and my parents were like, I don't know, just pick someone on like ancestry.com. We don't know but like, he wants you to go back and look at the patterns of your foremothers and forefathers. Your people, that's not a word. You will also come to know that I make up words. When all is confused, I just when in doubt, make up a word, right? 5 is dividing life into secular and sacred. It's easy to compartmentalize God in church. I know this deep in my bones. How do we deal with God in other areas? Pete talks about care for the poor. We say it's someone else's problem. Are we dividing life into secular? Christians aren't living any differently than their non-believing neighbors. I will link to a podcast that he does, in that they cheat on their spouses as much as non-believers. They commit acts of crime as much as non-believers. And I am not here to make any claims about that, but he just says that we have divided our lives and put it into like compartments so that our whole life isn't speaking as we are children of God.
Sunday only Christian.
We go to church, we get it done, we leave, it's over. So number 6 is doing for God instead of being with God. And in this book, Anatomy of the Soul, that's what it really is about. Is that we have decided as a peoples, right? I'm particularly taken by this left brain, right brain approach to living, in that our left brain is logical, linear, language-based. And so many of us know God. We want to like be able to say, this is what God is. This is how I know God. I can memorize things. I can logically explain in my brain what God is. But on the other hand, that right brain experience of being known by God. How many of us feel Jesus's presence in our lives? How many of us like listen and know when we see and experience God's miracles and blessings and believe? And it doesn't have to be big or anything. It's just feeling. It's just connecting. That right brain experiencing is all feelings. I'm going to also link to my favorite TED Talk in the email. It's by Jill Bolte Taylor. She was a neuroscientist who had a stroke on the left side of her brain. People donated brains to her. So she knew the brain. She had a stroke on the left side of her brain, only could experience from her right side. And her world was all emotions, all color. Janet, do you have a question? Or no, you were just leaning forward. I get excited. I'm like, Janet wants to speak. Here she is. But it is one of the most powerful TED Talks because she says in that moment, she saw the divine. She was able to experience and connect in a spiritual way to everything around her. And her peers, her former colleagues, because she left the world behind of where, I can't remember where she was at, some fancy university, right? And they said she was brain damaged. She didn't feel that. She's crazy. So we distrust when we experience God, when we're known by God, because the world around other Christians, these are other Christians saying, no, the way we know God is the left brain. Like this is the way we know God. Forgetting that God gave us both hemispheres.
And I think like, if I can give another example also,
Yes.
I think one thing that really I struggle with from coming from like a very progressive camp in seminary is that on the flip side of that, we distrust experiences of God if we can't make sense of them in a way that is right, like extremely orthodox. So like if we can't point to a specific place where this exact thing happened, we distrust that experience and are unwilling to bring it into our current context, right? So we've judged already whether or not God can even show up for us in a way that's different. And I struggle with that.
Oh my goodness.
Even now.
Because how many of us say like, was that God's voice? Is that me thinking that? Am I going crazy? Maybe that's just me having these internal dialogues with myself, but I don't think so. I think we're so wrapped up in like, this is the orderly approach. And if it looks outside of that, I know if I started speaking in tongues, I think I would probably think I was having a seizure and panicked and would panic at the same time, right? Because that's not how I was taught to know God. I grew up in the Methodist church where we don't even clap our hands, right? We know God in a quiet way that is not overpowering and too excited, which for me is a challenge in life, as you guys can already tell. Yes.
Do we really not clap? I didn't know this. Do we not clap?
No, we clap.
I feel like there's some Methodists that are really fun.
My mom was a big clapper.
Yeah.
No.
She wouldn't have allowed that.
I feel like Chapel Hill is also an interesting mix because there are so many people who are not Methodist that go to Chapel Hill because it's a different kind of experience. But yeah, I will have to say that when I saw people clapping and Josh's dad, amens even. And like, I come from like the Baptist background and I'm like, whoa, this is like, don't you know where you are?
Well, I always joke, my husband couldn't handle the coffee in the sanctuary. He was like, what is this? Like, we're just taking coffee and listening about God. Like, we need to be hands down, silent. It was hysterical. I had no idea what our brains do. Okay, sorry, Janet, let's hear it.
Okay. I went to a funeral, and I was with a friend of mine who is a charismatic Catholic, and she will never take final vows, but she is celibate and she is married to Jesus, and it's some level. She
Yes.
does have a kind of a habit that she can wear for special occasions. Well, anyway, I fell down these stone steps and she started praying in tongues.
Yes.
I just thought, cool.
Yes, Janet, I love it.
I just figured, God's probably listening to that. I mean, God understands every language, so hey.
Amen.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
It was neat.
Well, I think, Janet, here's what we know about you is that number 10, we're just skipping forward. Let me just tell you, judging others, spiritual experiences, spiritual journeys. Here's what we know about Janet. She doesn't judge. She's like, cool.
I judge other stuff, but
yes, that's it. You're it's okay. But that's the truth. I do that.
On the other hand, I worked for a guy who had ALS, and I helped take care of him the last year of his life. And he had this gal that did massage on him, and she was real woo woo,
Yes.
woo woo here, I mean, she was just out there.
Yes.
And so he offered to pay for a massage for me, and I said, no, thank you. I don't want woo woo doing body work on me.
Right.
My masseuse is a really strong Christian. I prefer that.
Right.
I don't know if that's superstitious or what. It gives me goosebumps. I just think of it. I don't want somebody who's just out there.
Yeah.
That's intimate work, doing body work on someone.
It is. And Janet, there's some level of this is what I feel safe with, and this is my boundary.
Right.
But you didn't say she was a bad person.
No, she was a nice gal, but I didn't want
it.
to work on me.
You were like, it crosses. And that's the hardest thing, I think, between judging others and knowing that their journey is their journey. But that doesn't mean we need to participate in it.
Right.
That's where you were like, oh, I see this. Here's my line, not crossing it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Nice of you to offer.
Exactly. But I think it is so fascinating. I'm like, oh, those judgy Christians. I had a hard time saying I was a Christian for a very long time because of the environment in which I was brought up was one of judgment. And I was like, wait, not all Christians have to judge others, right? I think this is so many of our stories. And Peter says, my responsibility is not to judge. Unless I first take, what is it? The darn log out of my own eye that's clouding my eye, and use tweezers to get the teeny tiny fleck out of my neighbor's. I must see the extensive damage done to my own life before I get to say, your sin.
But I think what we get caught up so easily in is that the church for so long has been more interested in getting people to hold their theological line, right? They're more interested in converting people to a worldview than they are to having a relationship with Jesus. And it's really easy to get caught up into the club mentality, right? And the judgment that I find most often is Christians judging other Christians within the church of if you don't have the same belief system I do, or if you don't hold the same political or theological line I do, then we can't be in community. And so the judgment and the break happens in relationship often for someone else's agenda, not even on how you experience God. We don't even get there often. We're not that honest, right? It often happens on what do you believe, which is crazy because it's not we go around living our lives as beliefs. We're people. right? Okay, I'm kidding. I'm getting crazy.
No, yeah, but anytime any of you want to speak, just say it. Abigail. Yes.
Well, I was just going to say it was a barrier for me when I was moved to Wichita and was trying to find a church. I was so disappointed in how many churches went out of their way to in there. You click on what we believe, right? And that should be, Jesus died for our sins and we're a loving church and things like that. But they would go out of their way to make a political statement about gay people and gay marriage and gay relationships and whether gay people could be Christians. And so I'd be like, cross that off. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
That upset me because for me, I grew up in a small town, very conservative type values. For me, the worst thing you can do as a Christian is be so judgmental that you push people away from God. Like that's on you. So that was frustrating for me.
I have the goose. I just finished reading Love is the Way by Bishop Michael Curry of the Episcopal Church. Have you guys, I know him because he married Meghan Markle. Sorry, sweet Brandon. I'm just going down the royal family route just for 2
Prince
seconds.
Philip died today.
I know, I saw that at 90. My claim to fame, do we say this? It's not fame. I lived in England for 5 years, so therefore I consider myself a real beacon of information about the royal family. I never met them. I just don't. I'm making it up. I do have tea towels of all of their
mother's
faces.
from England.
Wait, what?
My mother's from England. I have a coffee cup in my break front from the inaugural. What do you do when you make a queen? Whenever she was the coronation of Queen Elizabeth in the 50s. I do. You want to see it?
Well, I want to come up. I'm coming over next time with Janet and Maria. We're just going to have. Well, I'll just turn up at people's places.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're doing class from here. But we married Meghan Markle, and he was saying, "Love is the way. Love is the way." And I think if you guys have never been gifted an audio book, please send me a message and I will send you this book on Audible, from Audible, because he talks about how he changed his beliefs about LGBTQI.
Oh gosh, there's another one. What's the I?
Well, intersex, maybe. I think so.
It just goes on and on and on.
I know.
I think generally they do LGBTQ. I feel like
okay, good. I didn't need to keep going.
we can just say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K.
That's it.
Michael Curry.
Don't get lost in the terminology. Back on the topic.
Back on the topic. Michael Curry. He said it was to me. He is a Black American who is in the Episcopal Church.
Right.
And he said he had to look at it from so many different ways, and he changed his opinion. And he had to go to England.
I just ordered it.
Oh, okay, we'll talk about it.
Listening to just is horrible.
I
need somebody, so I'll listen to this.
His voice. Oh, guys, everybody. It's like, I just want to be, I read it at 1.4 speed though, or listened to it. But okay, so he's saying we're not judging. Peter's saying we're not judging. What I appreciate about Chapel Hill is it is a call not to judge.
Right.
It is a call towards love. So that is what Pete is saying is emotionally healthy. That is number 10, but we need to go back to number 7. Spiritualizing away conflict, sweet friends. That is saying we sweep it under the rug. Let's just pretend like it's not happening. Let's just put on that happy fake smile. Jesus was cut up in conflict in healthy ways. Jesus modeled to us. My favorite is Jesus. Could you imagine Jesus going and flipping over the tables? Like, that's not the Jesus I know, right? Or that I picture in my mind. Jesus was willing to have difficult conversations. When his mom and siblings, he was like, no, this is my family. Like, Jesus didn't say all is well in God's world. He was willing to do that. So when we notice, these are like the 10 symptoms. If we were on like Christ MD, I just made that up. Maybe I should like get that going on the interwebs, right? Like WebMD, we check out our symptoms, don't we? This is what we're doing. Number 8 is covering over brokenness. And this hits me hard, sweet friends. Pressure to be perfect, to look perfect, to feel less, like to feel like we don't want to ever feel less than. And this is what I believe is at the root of all of us, that we don't feel like we are worthy now. We feel like we have to do things to prove our worthiness. When God says, I sent Jesus. But we think that we have to fake and pretend like everything is okay and not say we are broken. 9 is living without limits. Look at my face. This is like Jesus lived without limits. We can't serve everyone in need. Jesus didn't feed all the hungry, didn't help all the injured, but it's my right. I went into the helping professions because I'm like, I gotta solve everybody's problems. Has anybody read the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer? Oh, sweet sassy, you guys. That book is incredible. And what he tells us, it's just really, he talked to John Ortberg of Soul Keeping, right? And it was what Dallas Willard said to John Ortberg. So it's like secondhand knowledge, but he did it in his life as a father, a pastor in Portland. And it is the idea that we do not live with limits in this life. In our, like, as Christians, we're like, I gotta save more, do more, hustle more. What if we trusted God? And that's what we're doing in our day-to-day, is not hustling. We're taking 5 minutes 2 times a day to stop and breathe and be with God. Because we're like, don't worry, God, I'll handle everything for you. I got this. I don't actually need you because I'm just gonna hustle. So that's our call. And like Jeff, when he was talking about the Sabbath and how do we stop and breathe and stop the hustle? What is it? Busy sickness? It was like, oh, I sure have busy sickness, sweet friends.
I also heard one, the tyranny of the urgent. I love that.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I always, so you know, my work is to say, let's see what thoughts and emotions are driving your action. And if people come to me and they're like, I'm in a hurry, I got to get this done. And I'm like, why does it need to be done? We think if something is done, we'll feel better. We think if something changes, we'll feel better. Oftentimes, it's not the truth. We have to change our thoughts. That's what's going to make us, we have to decide we're worthy now, not when we get the thing.
Janet knows what my family's been through. I lost both my parents in less than a year, and that's just the surface summary explanation. But how I coped with both of my parents' death was just pouring myself into being extremely busy.
That's it.
And it turned out to be pretty damaging because it pushed off the grieving process and made it worse.
That is, Natalie, I say, and please know you are not alone. That is how we deal with the emotions that come up. I say there's 4 options. One is to distract by it, by being busy, right? Like when emotions come up, Netflix, yes. Volunteering, yes. Overworking, yes. Over drinking, of course. I love a good glass of wine, right? I don't know, like fill in the blank. How do you deal with emotions? I distract. And we look at this, we're going to look at this over this time. Second option when emotions come up is resist. You're like, oh, not on my watch. It's that British stiff upper lip. Or that our parents are like, nope, you will not feel grief because you don't have the time to feel grief. So it's that resisting. The third is my favorite, of which it will come as no surprise. You guys have just met me, but this is my favorite, is to overreact to the emotion. For example, I love to get super angry and I'm like the Jesus overturning the tables, right? Or I say angry cleaning, right? If I feel like my house is not clean and no one's helping me, I will clean loudly and angrily so that everybody knows how mad I am. That's the third option you have when emotions come up. Fourth option is to feel and to grieve and to know that God and Jesus are in the pain. The Holy Spirit is with you in the pain. It is not to distract and resist and overreact. It is to feel. But here's the deal. God's with us all the time. So even if we resist and overreact and do all the things, we can catch ourselves on the bounce. Thank you, Bob Goff, for that beautiful idea that we will have these immediate reactions because habitually that's what we do over and over again. But I can see it, notice it's happening, saying, oh, am I overreacting? Yes, I am. I'm going to choose something else. I'm going to apologize.
You know, when my brother died of carbon monoxide poisoning when he was 14, and somebody told my mother, some well-meaning Christian person told my mother it was God's will. That was the last, I mean, she just,
Yep.
Well, my brother's never stepped foot in a church since, except for a wedding or a funeral.
Yes.
So she did not, here's stiff upper lip. She didn't cry for a year and a half.
That's it.
She ended up getting pregnant accidentally, and that
Yes.
baby died. He was born a year and a half after Jim died. And Michael never made it home from the hospital. And a nurse came in. And my mom couldn't go to the funeral because she was so physically, getting the baby out fast was hard on her. We'll just
Yes.
and a nurse came in one night and grabbed her by the shoulders and she said, "You cry," and just shook her like that. And my mom just exploded and she cried for at least 2 hours.
Yes.
She looked for that nurse the next day. They had the head of the hospital, everybody, there was no nurse.
Oh,
Sorry, I didn't fall down. There was no nurse. Never found her. Well, that's because she was an angel. I just believe that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it took, I mean, she went from 140 to 118 pounds. She,
yes.
you know, I mean, a lot of things happened during that year and a half, but crying was not one of them. She was so angry when that
Yes.
woman told her that was God's will. She was just so angry. That's all she could stay in was anger.
Absolutely. And we are not given the tools by mainstream society, by our parents to feel our feelings, where no one teaches us.
Well,
This
especially
is what it
up
looks
in
like.
England with the stiff upper lip, and you just by gum didn't show
That's
it.
it.
You
That
know?
is the truth. I will even notice, that philosophy, I think, has that this is God's will. I just want that has damaged so many relations. That is the disconnect.
Mhm.
That is the part where people are in pain themselves and they don't know what to say. And they say something that is deeply hurting. We will talk about trauma. That is trauma. We will talk about trauma, not because it's in this book, but because I think it's worthy of talking about. I believe that the pandemic has been trauma for all of us, a small T trauma, not a big T trauma. Death is a big T trauma.
Sorry.
Nope, don't worry at all. So we are going to talk about that. And thank you for sharing that, Natalie. Thank you for sharing that, Janet, because we all have those stories. And oftentimes in churches, we are not giving people voices to say, I am deeply broken. I am in pain. Because they say, put your loved ones up with Jesus. And that does not take away the pain and loss. So what we are doing in this work is becoming people who accept our emotions, but being the people for others who give space for people to have their emotional experiences. And I will warn you that I don't always want to be the person that gives the space for emotional experiences. For example, my spouse, sometimes I just want him to be happy and not complaining about traffic or something. I'm like, get over it, Bella. But he has to have emotions too, right? But how are we walking our walk and then allowing others their pain, their grief, their experiences in all of the emotional experience? And how do we feel deeply? And how are we called to say, shake it out? And I use the example, so many of you know this, we stuff our emotions into backpacks, right? Brandon might have a really hip backpack because he's, a young guy and his looks great. Mine's like has,
it.
What, Brandon?
Said you know it.
Mine's like stuffed with thousands of different, the younger we are, the less full it is because we're stuffing our emotions in it. Emotions that we don't deal with, we just shove into that backpack. You're like, oh, I'm going to distract from it. I'm going to resist for it. Guess what? It doesn't go away. It's shoved in that, what do we say, metaphoric backpack? And so one day it's going to get too heavy and you're going to have to put it down. Or one day your back strap is going to break. I don't know if anybody had too many, like in college, I would try to take like 1,000 books home from the library and your bag would break. I mean, like I was studying, but I did at one point in my college career, in graduate school. But so we have these and our bags break and then we're forced to deal with everything that falls out of that bag. It's those times that we have the emotional breakdowns, that someone comes to us and says, cry, cry. That's when we take each emotion out and say, is this something? How do I feel this? I hold it up to the light of day. I say, God, Holy Spirit, take this, do with this what you need. And I am present to that and I get rid of that. I believe the best gift we can give ourselves is to deal with our emotions so that we don't carry that heavy, heavy backpack around with us. That's the best gift we can give others as well. And sweet, sweet, divine creator who's like, I am here for you. And you keep stuffing this so far away from me. I want to help you. I want to love you. I want to love you in this. So, sweet friends, those are the 10 symptoms. That is all we got to. So there is roughly 4 more hours of material. No wonder they say that you do need 2 hours, but we're going to know ourselves that so that we may know God, right? We're going to go back so we can go forward. That's week 3. Week 4 is we're going to journey through the wall. Week 5 is you're going to enlarge your soul through grief and loss. And I pull in so many other, like The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, How God Changes Your Brain by Dr. Andrew Newberg. So it's not just this material, but we're going to bring in so many others. Number 6 is Discover the Rhythms of the Daily Office and Sabbath. We're going to talk in week 7, growing into emotional mature adult, and week 8 is discovering a rule for life. And Michael Bishop has his own manual for life. that I will also bring in because his is so precious and so loving, of course, right? Yes, Janet.
Brandon, where are you sitting?
I know. I was wondering.
I'm at Southwestern College right outside.
It's
Brandon, well, when we're doing it live from Southwestern College, watch out.
I love those screens.
Japanese looking.
Yeah,
It does look
Yeah.
like,
I mean, here, let me flip my camera around. so you
yes,
guys
let's,
can. Let me figure this out. And I'm a young kid. I should know how to do this, right?
well, yes, Brandon, we're looking to you for our tech.
Yeah.
I am trying. Okay. This is like in front of me.
Oh
Like all
my
these trees.
gosh. Okay, Abigail, we're taking a trip.
Okay.
And then that's my dorm building right there.
Brandon.
That's where I live.
And where is it? Winfield?
Southwestern.
Winfield, yes.
Oh,
Winfield.
That is incredible. Were you a member of Chapel Hill, Brandon?
Yeah. Yeah, I started.
You're frozen.
I know. Oh,
Live from Southwestern College. Frozen.
yes. Oh, he'll come back, I'm
do you
sure.
have, I wonder if he can still hear us. I wonder if he has a friend of ours as a professor there, Mike.
Oh,
Who is it?
he'll
He'll come back.
come back.
He will.
So you guys, in respect of time, I'm going to tell you this, that these will be available on a YouTube. I'll send out the YouTube link.
Yes.
Either on my YouTube channel, I have a Lives of Courage business. If you ever are on social media, you can follow the things I say. Oh, Brandon's back, guys.
Yeah.
He's coming back. But also, it will also be available on Chapel Hill. So if you can't make it, you'll be able. Brandon's back.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. My computer just like had this weird error. It just like shut off.
It's technology. But how long did you go to Chapel Hill, Brandon?
I started attending Chapel Hill when I was like 13. I'm from Potwin, Kansas. Like it's a small town. I don't like how my camera looks. It's like inverted, but oh well.
It looks good to us.
My sister, when she was young, she sadly became atheist. And so my parents wanted to find like a new church kind of away from there to kind of make new connections and stuff. So we found Chapel Hill, and the goal was to like go to multiple churches and find one we really liked, but we went and heard Jeff and like fell in love. So that's been our church.
That is incredible. And what? I'm so thankful you're here. And we also have another friend that has joined us.
Yes.
Yes.
Can I say hi,
He's
Silas?
just living his best life. We all are. Happy Friday.
Silas, he broke out of jail just like his namesake.
What's his name?
He's really living
Silas.
up to the name. I love it. So you guys know, if you need me in between sessions, you just email me. You will get a summary. You'll get some book recommendations, some possible homework if you want. But that's about it. We will meet for an hour. You can not be here. You can be here. You can watch it on the replay. If you have questions and can't be here live, you just send me an email. For example, Natalie might be busy here coming up pretty soon.
I'm in labor. I'll tune in from the hospital. That's okay. Can't miss it.
We got this. We would all just send you all the love.
When's the baby
Oh my
due?
God.
Cinco de Mayo, but I'm really hoping he's early so I can have a margarita on Cinco de Mayo.
Perfect.
Alden was 11 days early, so I really don't want this child to fail me. I'm hoping tomorrow would be great. We're close enough to full term. We're close to 37 weeks.
I'm running around the house.
Today.
Today would be great.
Today.
Joining
I
back
love
on.
it.
We're feeling done.
I bet.
That's it. When you get, okay, sweet friends. That's fine, Brandon. That I am so grateful for each of you. we did not get to everything, but we will get to everything in 8 weeks. I promise.
Hi, Silas.
Hi, Silas. Oh, those cheeks. But if you need anything, you know where to find me. And I'm going to stop recording. Are we? Look at us.
Thank you,
And
Tess.
then stop recording.